Good morning, I'm Jay. The kids call me Dr. Call me Jay. Pleasure to be here. We're going to break our morning session into three sort of different groups, and you're going to be active because one of the big themes of this year is about cultivating community. So we're actually going to build a little community in this room too. I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about me, sort of my background, where I'm coming from, how I got here, and sort of my expertise and my passion in education. We're going to do a couple of activities to get to know each other, for me to get to know you. I'd like you to be thinking about your favorite Meadows story, maybe your favorite memory. Second to that would be a hope you have or a couple of hopes you have for your child or for your children this year. And at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about housekeeping and things coming up for the rest of the year. Does that sound okay? Everyone get some coffee? I'm like adrenaline. Hit me about noon, I'm going to be in my office like this. So I'm Jay, originally from Detroit. Went to school in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. We played UNLV last week, which was so serendipitous. Pretty good game.
UNLV Charter.
Yeah, that's right. They were okay. They got a couple on the board. That's right, exactly. Kind of big deal. Went to school in Michigan. I started my career in education in public school. Taught as an assistant music director at what is now the largest high school in the Midwest, about 6,200 students. In Texas, we'd say 6A plus. Very large, massive athletics programs, massive arts programs, which is where I found my passion, which was in music. I'm a saxophonist. And so for me, in middle school, very competitive swimmer. I ran track, I played basketball. I also played saxophone, and my mom pushed me to get in the marching band. You know, and it still comes up around Thanksgiving dinner. It was a thing that sort of hooked me, and it's where I got to college. I went back to grad school for music, jazz studies, and actually went on the road for quite a while. Once we find out, I should introduce my lovely wife, Monica, the much better half. When we found out we were pregnant with our first daughter, Madeline, we decided we were going to lift roots and move to New York City, which is what we did. So I spent the next 8 years at Horace Mann School, which is large. At the time, it was the largest in the continuous United States independent school in the country, 1,900 students. A school is about 150 years old. And I walked in, and I think literally in my first month, I had Walter Cronkite's kid in my class. Governor Spitzer's student was I was like, wow, this is not the Midwest. This is not Detroit. This is not public school. But I got to know a lot about independent schools in a city that is really known to have many great ones. From that point, I moved on to the Meadows family of schools. It's an international family consortium of schools around the globe, 70,000 plus students, about 15,000 faculty and staff in those schools. Actually, at one point, Henderson International was owned by Meadows, a school that's in sort of our backyard here. We loved Houston, so we stayed. We built our family there, worked at Episcopal High School where I'm coming from recently. So we were in Texas for 14 years, which means we got to congratulate our Astros twice on the World Series. Fingers crossed. Okay, they cheated. Okay, maybe. I still won though. And they're in the hunt this year too, so we'll see. I hear we're getting a baseball team here as well. We'll see how that goes. But enjoyed watching the Aviators. This process for me took about 18 months. When I heard about the Meadows School back in March, a year and a half ago, all I knew was the strip. I'd flown in for some conferences, stayed at a few places. We actually did a quick pit stop on the way to LA with family during the pandemic. I had no idea what Summerlin was, what it wasn't. And so as a semi-finalist in June, when the board invited us out, I came a few days early because my kids were like, Dad, I don't know, like, are we going to be living underneath Harrah's? How does this work? Now, obviously, Summerlin is none of those things. I sent pictures back, videos back. It's, it's an oasis over here. It's beautiful. And when I was fortunate enough to be asked to come back as a finalist, I brought my wife, Monica, with me, and he came a couple days early as well, just to say, is this a place we could build our family? Which, as you're going to find out from me over and over, it's the center of my philosophy, it's the core of who I am. People come first. We'll do all the rest really well if we get that part right. And so for me, making sure that my oldest, who's at UT Austin, she's a junior this year, my middle daughter who graduated in May, but Tallulah, who's actually a Mustang. She's in 10th grade here, doing very well. She was in cross country. She's doing early bird. If you've seen King Lear's been doing sword play on the wall, safely, by the way. We haven't lost any rooms yet. But trying to make sure that this would be a fit for our family. One of the things that was most important to us, in addition to making sure that transition went well, is that this is not going to be for us a temporary fit. We're not here for a few months. We're really here to build, both in terms of our family, but also in terms of a school that has a great tradition, outstanding legacy, and in its 39th year, cresting its 40th year, a school that has a tremendously bright future. So in addition to getting the offer in October, we came with our family in November. We spent a few days. Tallulah was able to shadow some students, which was awesome. And thank goodness for social media this way. She's DMing them, sending pictures, and she's off and running, and she's had a great start. Visited a number of times, and I've actually met many of you. I was in the carnival, we had the new family event back in the spring, and we moved in June, which was seasonally cool. And everyone thought I was a liar because I said it's the desert and it's hot in June. And I said, no. In fact, it was really hot in Houston. July was a different story, as we all know. And then we brought a hurricane with us. We brought a downpour a couple weeks ago. Apparently the weather follows us, which also means if I control the weather, be careful what you say. Rounding the corner, I would say that as I talk with you in just a few minutes about my overarching goals for the year, I want you to understand the most important thing to me is that every student feels valued, feels welcome, and to the degree that we can, and it is an ideal, but it's an ideal we're striving for, that they all have an exceptional experience every single day on campus. Possible, yes. Hard to do, also yes. But one of the reasons we're greeting them every morning in carpool, giving them high fives, doing fun things like this day to day, is to make sure that we're lifting them up. I firmly believe, and we could talk about the research and the science behind all of that, I firmly believe that happy children that have a great sense of worth and self-esteem, are primed to do all the things that the Meadows already does well. In other words, if we make sure that they leave here excited to come back, the recipe is just time and excellence. Which gets me to sort of my two major focus areas. You're going to hear us talk a lot this year, and even those of you that have been at Paradigms, we've talked a lot about cultivating community and elevating excellence. They're not independent of each other, they're sort of interdependent. So when we talk about community, we're talking about everything from ongoing training for our faculty and staff. We had a training with the Anti-Defamation League. We have a great partnership we started this summer with the Israeli-American Council. We also did some gender training with our faculty, with our schools lawyer, to talk about how can we do what we do better? How can we practice how we practice at a higher level? As well, trying to make sure that you all as parents, as volunteers, as our collaborative partners, feel like you're really part of what we're doing. So you should expect good amounts of communication, quality communication. But in return, I would also say, you're welcome to come and visit. There's no walls around the campus. My office is literally right there. Don't bombard me today, but I want to get to know you. I want to know your stories. I want to know who you are. I want to know about your children. And then I think that goes across the board with our faculty and staff as well. As we continue to grow into our next best self as a school, that's an integral part of the scenario. Next to that is talking about elevating excellence. You've probably at least heard the acronym CTTL. We've partnered a long-term partnership, multiple years, with the Center for Transformative Teaching and Learning. This really is sort of, as the kids say, life hacking. If you follow any sort of social media, what we've done is we've really focused on mind-brain education to look at ways to optimize learning in the classroom. Some things that sound really silly but are obvious. Making sure kids are up and moving more regularly in the day, just to make sure that there's more oxygenation, more blood flow happening. All the things we've talked about. You're going to hear our teachers say things like cognitive overload. You know, we're looking at homework. We're looking at like what is going to move the bar the most with our students. We're talking about, and this is again, we're getting a little bit nerdy with neuroscience, talking about myelination, talking about things like executive functioning suite of skills, so that we're not just saying, how do we do math faster? We're saying, how does that math apply to the real world? Let me give you an example. So when you walk down to campus, or if you drove onto campus today, in the middle of the campus, right in that circle behind the guardhouse, is a flag pole. Now I walk campus every day. I've been mostly the 40 acres about 3 or 4 times a week. And I noticed when I got here in July, there's no flag on the pole. So I talked to Brett, our facilities manager. It turns out we haven't had that flag on the pole for a long time. And it's one of these things you see and you forget, and all of a sudden it's just been a long. So we talked about what would it take to get the flag on the pole. Well, obviously we get a lift and we can do that, right? So okay, great. We're also talking a lot about how to make service more meaningful for our students, which isn't just to say that we shouldn't keep doing the things we're doing, but with Meadows students, especially as we talk about ambitious lovers of higher learning, students that are driven to lead, how do we give them opportunities to serve as leaders? So Joe Carver, who's in the back, Joe, wave your hand. Joe is our Chief Innovation Officer. We're sort of chatting about this about a week and a half ago. So Joe, how do we solve this problem with students? So we're back and forth, we're iterating, sort of iron sharpening iron here. And we said, why don't we open up a competition for our STEM kids? Why don't we just do something really fun and see if they can solve it for us? If they can do it really without any risk, keep the costs low, we'll come up with some fun bounty, we'll get a plaque at the bottom of the thing. So I go to Astro Camp last week, which was the 7th grade trip, right? No fires this year. Awesome. That's the high bar, by the way. So I talked to a bunch of students and said, look, we're going to open up this competition to see if we can string a rope around that flagpole. Again, we could write a check, we'd have a company do it, but this is an opportunity for our students to apply what they're learning in a real world application to solve a problem that also, as an Eagle Scout, is near and dear to my heart personally. So we started talking, and I'm not kidding when I tell you, over dinner, we had probably 7 or 8 young people coming to me, well, okay, what if I brought my I'm not kidding, my trampoline from home would be double jump. We could get 2 ladders, and then they're more stable. There was one, Elliot said, well, you know, I have a friend whose dad has a welder, and we could weld steps like they do on the big, you know, the high-rises where they can do welding, Elliot. But the point is, what it did is it got them thinking in a different way. This wasn't a math test, it wasn't a history test, it's saying, just like when we look at the world around us, clean air, sustainable water, all these big problems, I want these children, we want these children thinking about how to solve those problems today. Not in 15 years, but in 2nd grade, in beginning school, and in this case, in middle school. So we launched the competition. I think we're calling it Reclaiming Old Glory or something like this, Joe, is that right? School-wide, they have to be in teams of 3, which also is a collaborative skill we believe is important. So it's not just one student. We're going to hear all comers. We're going to see who can do it the best, the fastest, lowest risk, lowest cost. But that's one example, just a few weeks in a school, of how what we're trying to do in the classroom is also going to meet the world around us. Okay, you've heard me talk a little bit. And yes, there will be a little time for question and answer at the beginning. At the end, if I can get help from the staff in the back, we're going to pass out these 5x7 cards, and we're going to come back to this question I asked you to think about. A favorite story or a memory that you have about the school. The second part is something you have a hope for your child or your children this year. So as our staff walks around, take a card. I got a whole bunch of pens as well, and I'm going to give you instructions. Don't write anything down yet. All right, on your card. This is going to be your exit ticket today.
I'm the one with the car you asked me.
I say what I mean, and I do what I say. You can please, on one side of the card, legibly, just give me your name, give me an email address so I can reach out to you and say hi. This will be my way of knowing who you are, and when I reach out to you, you'll get to know a little bit better about who I am as well. Just a name, a phone number, or an email, something, some way for me to reach out to you. Which also means, don't write your worst sayings on this card, because I am going to see them. Here's what I'd like you to do. Put an A on one side and a B on the other side. I know this isn't your typical coffee, but this isn't a typical year. One of the things I heard over and over again as a candidate in my visits is how do we foster more community? How do we foster better community? Part of that is stepping sometimes a little bit outside of our comfort zone and saying, all right, I want to be a community. I want to make sure I am welcoming. I want to make sure others feel welcome in this. On side A, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. You're going to be sharing a little bit with people around you too. So here's a chance to be vulnerable. And by the way, this is a skill we're teaching our students, which means you're in the pot as well. On side A favorite Meadows memory. A favorite Meadows moment, a memory, something that happened that for you really stands out. And just write it enough so you understand it so that if I look at it later in the chicken scratch, I get at least a couple of the words right. A favorite Meadows memory, a moment, something special to you, something endearing to you, something that helps to define the best parts of why we're here. Okay, as you're rounding the corner on that, side B. On side B, share with me, and also for the good of the group, 1 or 2 hopes that you have this year for your child or for your children. And this is a place now where it's really safe to have really high hopes. We deal with children in ideals. None of us is perfect. We all have a bad day. Raise your hand if you've had a bad year. I'm raising both, right? We're parents. It happens. But without the high ideals, we never reach for the stars. So what's a hope? What are a couple things you hope for your child, for your children this year? All right, as you're rounding the corner now, here's what I'd like you to do. We're not going to take a lot of time, but as we work to build community even in this room, and with each other as families, we're having sporting events and the plays and the various things we do, let's get to know each other. Find a neighbor near you. I'm going to give you about a minute to share your side A only. Side B. Side B. Thinking about an ideal, a hope, a few hopes that you have for your child or for your children. This time, find a new friend. You can move about the room if you want. Find someone and introduce yourself. Say hi. We're all getting to know each other a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you a minute and just share a little. Introduce yourself. Talk about the hopes you have. We'll check back in a minute. I want to talk a little bit about hopes they have for the children. Again, when you stand up, give us your name and just give us the either the division you're in or the grade of your children, just so we can get to know you a little bit better that way as well. Let's get a brave soul who wants to lead off with hopes for their child, hopes for their children. In the back.
Ryan Good, my daughter's first grade. First, my daughter's going to be who she's going to be. She's going to do what I always wanted her. My father wasn't strong. I wanted her to join the NASA space program. I told my wife, I said, all she has to do, go in the Air Force, 1,000 hours in the jet fighter, get a degree in engineering, she can get in the space program. My wife said, honey, our daughter is not leaving this planet. But since she's been going here, every single day we wake up and she has converted our living room to a new floor. So she's problem solving every day. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Rashania, please.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Matson. My daughter is in first grade and my son is in preschool. My hope is very simple, but it's true from my heart. I want them to love learning and be happy and confident.
Awesome. Great. Others would like to share? Let's give at least one or two more. Yeah, the back, and then we'll come up here.
Hi, my name is Larry Romero. My daughter's in fourth grade. Her name is Eliana Romero. One of the biggest things that I have for her is I was pushed when I was young and ended up becoming a Navy SEAL. One of the things that SEAL teams strive for is constantly teaching to the top and not to the bottom, which I think is sometimes an unfortunate thing in public schools. So for me, what I'd like is that pursuit of excellence, that I'm constantly pushing the limit to help our kids grow as this life that we're in is constantly changing, constantly getting faster, and unfortunately we're seeing in some aspects people falling behind. And with that, I appreciate this school teaching to the top so that our kids can stay up to the other countries out there that are doing things.
Appreciate it.
My name is Linda with Amari. I have two children. One is a preschooler and my son is in third grade. One of my hopes for them is that they will always feel a sense of belonging at the middle school. Feel included and continually feel like they belong. Indeed, they'll thrive. I really believe they'll thrive when they feel like this is us. This is us. We belong here.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Chan. I have two kids here in the school. So one is in preschool, her name is Isabel, and one is Nathan. He's in third grade in lower school. So my hope for this school is, I think a lot of people already touched it, is possibly to, obviously I want both of them to be happy and feel like they're part of this community, which they already are. But also I want them to be able to, I guess, kind of have the specialists and help together and develop the individualized accelerated program that we can help, different styles of living, different styles of students. They can all excel in a way where the school, right, this is what we want. We want to support each individual student, and then kind of differentiate a program where everyone feels supported. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nikki Norton. I am a super lifelong Wizard Army, and I hear all these stories. They're so productive, so many different things. I'm trying to get emotional about it, but I'm getting into it. But I think my daughter, I think what I want to give her is just when she leaves, when they're in the moment, especially senior year, there's so much going on. They don't know how good they have to learn, right? Like how nurtured they were, how schools give back to them. I want her to come back like she belongs, be so proud, right? So I think when they're in the moment, they forget, and they're like, oh my God, I hate school, I want to get over it, so over it. But I really hope that when they see activities like this, and they see other people in the community come out, that when they go in, they come back, and they're like, wow, Meadows did this for me, and that they
our guinea pigs this morning with this, and keep a hold of that. If you have other things you want to share on your own, you can write them down. It is your exit ticket. I am going to look at them. I can't be an accomplice to anything, but I'd love to see it. I want to spend a few minutes allowing you to ask me some questions if you have them, but I'm going to reframe the normal conversation to say that the idea today is both to introduce me, also for you all to introduce each other, but to really gear our thinking towards how do we collaborate together to make the Meadows the best it possibly can be. Whether that's community, whether that's elevating excellence, whether that's just making sure that these students have every possible support to be successful. My mind starts spinning and I think about partnerships in the city. I think about our upperclassmen in terms of more substantial internships. I think about our students with experiential learning. One of the things that one of our middle school faculty said after Astro Camp, it's like, man, we do all this hands-on stuff, and we see the kids' eyes light up and they get so excited. How do we bring some of that stuff back to campus? It's a great question to wrestle with. It's a question we're gonna wrestle with. But I want to give you some time to ask questions, but I'm also going to be looking for the group to bring some suggestions to the table too if you've got them. So why don't I open the floor and see what we've got? Yes, ma'am. Tell me your name.
My name is Brandon Simpson. I have 3 kids here on campus. I have Jackson, who's in 1st grade, Jaden, who's in 5th grade, and then Javelin, who's in 7th grade. My question right now, as we're talking about a sense of community, a sense of belonging, the culture of the overall campus, it's unfortunate that I hear a constant conversation of the children don't necessarily feel like they belong. They kind of feel outcast. They're experiencing situations that maybe they're able to get immediate support on, but then in the long haul, they don't feel like the school is necessarily addressing their immediate needs. Therefore, we have children that are struggling with self-respect, identity issues, and just a desire for the school community to embrace them for who they are every day. And so my question is, I know the DEI initiative that was started years past has been put on pause. And the response I got previously was when the new head of school comes in, he'll address it and he'll work on that. And so I just want to know if you've ever had any communications with the children specifically about how they're feeling on campus. I think it's different as a parent saying it to you, but as if your child was to come up to you and say, this is what I'm feeling, and how you might be able to address that moving forward.
It's a great question. It's at the top of a lot of minds. How do we create the most inclusive culture, a culture not only where we could write pages of philosophy and policies about belonging, and we can check all the right boxes and still not be a warm and friendly campus. So I'll say this, I think all things in terms of leadership are mine to own. So if we do it well, it's a compliment to the team that's done it. If we don't, you can blame me. I think in terms of how do we meet children where they're at, I think fundamentally, and again, I'm a bit of a data research nerd, but we could talk about the science of warmth, about creating community in the classroom, about even just opening opportunities between advisors and their students in beginning school and lower school with their teachers all day. But also, I think something we can do, and we're going to continue to do more of, is how do we open up time within the day that doesn't take the place of math prep, of literacy, of spelling, but also to say we value you. More than what you produce, we value who you are as a person. I think even though you wouldn't say anything about the Stanley Cup thing today as a DEI initiative, but I think about how we do it. We had a family said, how can I help? I said, it'd be fun to get some Lays. And all of a sudden we got a box of 1,200 Lays, right? We're giving kids high five. We're making sure, like if you've seen Judy Hope, who does lower school carpool, I mean, she's a hug magnet, right? And there's no policy for that. And a lot of schools struggle with institutionalizing mechanisms where we can ensure that we protect the dignity of the lives of our children, that we celebrate the unique differences. And we could go into all the right phrases, but I'll say this most important. It has been a constant part of the conversations I've been in for the sort of 2 months I've been here. We're at week 5 of school. We've already done a number of initiatives. We had a great assembly, I think as a kickoff this last Monday, talking about no place for hate. And just using words that are a little more welcoming. How do we make sure that the language we use isn't offensive to others? Which isn't to say we want to try to make everything so vanilla that we can't talk to each other, especially in the upper school and maybe even in middle school, opening opportunities for civil discourse that can be respectful, that can be uplifting and meaningful. but also making sure that at the end of the day, that we value people, that we make sure that our decisions are about their well-being. And if we focus on that, and willing to bet the house, we get the rest for free. So I think what you should expect and what you will see is more progress in that area. But I think even today, just opening up time to just talk, to get to know each other, to see our unique similarities and differences, and to start to address in practice, how do we make sure that we feel supported? We have a number of students with, whether it's learning differences, a variety of ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, academic differences, and saying, how do we find middle ground where we can all celebrate what we do as a school community? I'll say one other thing is a bit of an asterisk, and even with that assembly that we had on Monday, we're going to be very protective of not doing anything that divides the community. So that isn't to say that we won't tackle tough topics, especially in the upper grades where we really are wrestling with some very heavy materials. But we're not going to ever do anything where someone feels unincluded, unwelcome, and it's going to divide who we are as a Meadows Mustang family. I promise you. It's a great question. Yes, ma'am.
So I want to touch a little bit about the program. I know we're private school, how we know the sector, but how do you address, in terms of people have a little bit of problems with their students, right?
So it's a really interesting question. You couldn't hear in the back talking about like the designations of gifted students, teaching to the top, which is a point that came up. I would say one of the things that's very evident when you look back historically on the school with Dr. Cobley from the very early days, which was push to the very edge, right? Not just teach to the top at all costs, push to the top, but make sure you bring everyone along as well. It isn't an either or, they are interdependent elements. So I would say this, having been on campus now with teachers teaching, I've been in every classroom multiple times. I either start my day by visiting classrooms, I'm in and out throughout the day. I can tell you this for sure. The teachers we have on this campus are phenomenal. They're world-class bunch. The staff that we have, phenomenal. Everyone has a day. But I would say in general, our teachers are super, super prepared to deliver at an excellent level. So what we're talking about, we've had a number of conversations already, whether it's with social emotional learning needs, whether it's with a student that maybe is going through a difficult situation at home, or maybe is just checked out for a day. Middle school, you got kids growing 6 inches every other week and getting hair where they're not used to it, zits, and what's happening, right? Trying to make sure that we're not compromising the excellence, but where students need a little extra push, a little extra nudge, it's there, but also keeping things really high. You probably saw in the memo 2 students who went on to do international things with the history competition. We've got 50 students in our quiz bowl program, debates getting larger, and that's just to say for those topics, we've got 80 students, almost 1 out of every 10 students are in a play on this campus, right? Huge athletics program, and even though we're in 3A, we're doing pretty well. So I would say that excellence is always at the front and center of our thinking. Directly next to it is, how do we make sure everyone has that experience? So whether that's with tutoring to supplement, whether that's just making sure our teachers have the best research and practice to know how to meet the needs of all their students, it's literally the center of our philosophy, it's the center of our practice. It's something we don't ever solve, by the way, you don't ever get there, but it is something that we're always striving to say, how much more can we do? I'll give you the example of flag, saying, look, we could just have a great STEM program and the kids can get A's, and some of them will go off and do the robot war competition, which is kind of fun if you haven't seen. We're also saying, how do you serve the community? How do you serve the broader world? Part of our mission statement is also preparing these young men and women to be global citizens, which, as we've seen in our lifetime, has changed vastly. So the tools they need aren't just relevant to the SAT and the ACT. It's also saying, how do we build community? How do we find commonalities? How do we make sure that we're prepared not just to serve, but to lead? It's a great question. Others, yes?
Can you share with us some of the initiatives you're most excited about implementing or expanding as the house?
I think one that should excite all of us, and I think dig in as much as you're able to, is this partnership that we have with the CTTL. I think as we look at our practice over the last 39 years and how we have a very strong history of producing excellent students, I think also looking at what we know with the research about how the brain learns, absorbs, short-term memory, long-term memory. Also, what I would call, and I think a lot of research talks about, is transferability. In other words, how do I take what I'm learning in math and physics and David SP's class, not only the engagement, the excitement from the class, but how do I take that and ask deeper questions in history? How do I take that and also develop my passion for writing and reading so that it isn't as siloed? And I'm not saying we are, but I think because there's been so much research that's published in the last 15 years, about what we know about teaching and learning. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to, in baby steps, look at how do we modify, how do we massage edges, how do we look at the nuances, so that not only we ensure everyone has an exceptional experience, but what's the next level of that? I've said to my team so many times that I don't want to just be partnered with the CTTL. My hope as an ambitious person is at one point we'll be the leader for it on the West Coast. Ultimately, I'd like us to be the strongest, most respected school in America. I think that's possible. That's not an initiative, that's more of a passion right now, but I don't see any reason why Meadows shouldn't be at the top of everyone's mouth across the country. That one really excites me the most. Yes, sir.
How are you leadership carrying out to tackle the challenges, the important challenges of the school, not just for the school, but everybody, but particularly the school regarding drugs and inappropriate behavior, like hate speech and stuff like that. The reason why we're asking is because probably you're not too aware of this situation, but last year we had situations where students were involved with drugs, hate speech got filtered into the airport and stuff like that. And the concern is that there was important signs that they were there, but they were not being paying attention properly. And how do we avoid this happening?
It's a great question, and I think for the school it's a sensitive spot. We could have done better. I think it's interesting too because in the situation with the students involved with that, I think even the teachers, there's so many things that happen in the school day, so many things that you do your best with, right? And you like to assume the best of everyone. You miss some things. We gotta own that. That one's on us. I will say that being more intentional about our talk, 4 different partnerships, 3 different training sessions, 2 assemblies in 4 weeks, I think is progress. I think also in terms of how we talk, those of you that came up for the barbecue a couple weeks ago, the monsoon that we got for that hour and a half. So like, I had to call the game. Not anyone's favorite job, right? Of course, they were excited about it. We've got thousands of dollars worth of hamburgers and chicken sandwiches and kids everywhere running in the puddles. I mean, one kid with the slow-mo with the hair, looked like an old rep on cars. But I went and talked to the team. I pulled the coaches aside and said, coaches, the rain is coming this way at this point, right? The field's flooded. I said, I hope you'll support the fact that I want you to play the game. I got to make sure everyone gets home safe, right? We've got a ton of small children on campus, families on campus, and we'll live to play another day, but we got to get home. Awesome, full support. I said, if it's okay, I'd like to talk to the team. And I'll summarize, I think, more of a philosophy than an actual directive. But I hope that you come to see that this is going to permeate our culture. So I pulled the kids in, hey guys, I'm really sorry, I got to bring you the bad news. And to be really honest, about 3/4 of them kind of, like, it wasn't such a horrible thing, and it was a Labor Day weekend, we get a couple extra hours, and we're not banged up. That's not to play like with the cheer and the football teams. They work really hard and they want to be awesome. I said, but you have to see it here from me, that you being successful, you making it home, making smart choices this weekend, isn't just something we're hoping for, I'm asking you. I said, I need you back here on Tuesday, I need you back here at 100%, and I want you to stay close to each other. Look out for each other, get off the parking lot, safe, drive carefully. There's a couple streets closed, right? We sort of get into that. But again, because these guys, they're amped up, they're pretty excited, I said, also, we're gonna make sure we celebrate. Also, your example matters. So when you walk back, and you're gonna have to walk back, because I got, the Hall of Athletes is packed with middle school kids all jacked up on Mountain Dew and sugar and candy, and they're like, let's go, we gotta play in the rain. I said, they're gonna watch you. I said, how you talk to each other, the language you use, the way you hold yourselves, how you spin out in the parking lot or drive off respectfully. I said, that's on you. So I can sit here and talk all I want about values and about ideals and about the greatness of Meadow Mustangs. You're it. And that's going to be what we talk about across the board. So when I met with the 5th graders, we're having lunches throughout the week as well. Got head of school for the day on Friday, young man who won that, bringing in a bunch of the 5th grade class talking about, you're it, you're the fabric. You have to hold each other accountable. You've got to look to each other for excellence. You've got to expect excellence of each other. Very first day of school, I spoke in the middle school assembly and the upper school assembly. And we did a little selfie with the whole grade, and it was fun. But I also said, if we talk about cultivating community, that's you, you're the garden. I said, we can do so much, and we're going to do as much of that as we can. You as parents can do so much, but you're all in it every day. So when I see the kids for volleyball, when I'm walking the hallways, high five, and is it just to be nice? It's also to say that that loving kindness, that caring, that compassion, that inclusiveness isn't a spoke. It's the center of the wheel. Maybe one more. Yes, ma'am.
Just going to continue on with the conversation. My question is regarding culture.
Yes.
Because we have our own business and we focus on culture because this is who we are. And this is our second year at Meadows. We try to get involved as much as we can. But if you ask me what Meadows culture, I can't really summarize it. So I think the school is different. We have different stakeholders. We have teachers, we have students, and family. Do you have any plan to kind of define how you have culture probably already and communicate so we can all work together? Just like
It's a really great goal, and I promise you every school in America wrestles with this. Like, where do I get involved? How do I get involved? I would say a few things. We have opened up some resources for room parents in terms of literally financially supporting those rooms so that parents don't have finances as a barrier for volunteering, right? That's a structural thing. That became a policy, right? We can do lots of that. But the other thing I would say is be around, be present. I think the more of you that are at games, that are coming to school to drop off, that are raising your hand and say, look, I see an opportunity, I'd like to volunteer. I'll give you a good example. I had a couple parents meet with me a week and a half ago. If you go behind the lower school, we reinvested in a garden back there. It's a beautiful space, right? But there's a little plaza out there, probably has a name, I can't think of it, but there's a plaza behind the lower school that's got picnic tables. I said, wouldn't it be nice for children this age to have some water tables, to have some umbrellas? Like, we're not talking about I need to check for $100,000. What I need is half a dozen parents that can come up and help beautify, right? We've got the staff that can do it, but I'd rather those teachers working with them in the classroom, right? So you being present saying, hey, coach, put me in, I'm good for a couple of days next month. I'll find something for you. We got plenty to do, and I think even more than that, being around. And I would also empower you all, just like the teachers do, just like I do as the head of school. If you hear something come out of a student's mouth that doesn't sound right, say something. Do it respectfully, but don't wait. We have to do this together. Just like as parents, I see kid came in today crying, really just wanted mom, wanted a hug, right? She was just adorable. I think probably just was having an emotional day, because kids do, right? So I got this. She came give me a hug, walked her, and now I'm the head of school, right? But I wasn't head of school right then, I was dad, right? And I walked her to the playground. She said, no, I gotta go see Mystery Horse room. She went to Mystery Horse room. I patched her up, she was fine. You all have that power as well. So if it's a volleyball game, if it's a football game, it's a barbecue, keep an eye out. Help us get there together. If you all point to me, there's only one me. I will give 20 hours a day. I will try my best, but we will do it better together. I think it's a good challenge for all of us, and I think as we look at the next generation, the next era of the school, that's what's going to make this great school the best school. A couple things to keep on your radar. If you've got your phones out, a couple dates. On October 16th, it's the Monday of homecoming. We're going to have a head of school installation. It's going to be in the gym. We're going to be bringing back some founding families, some teachers from the early days. Mayor Goodman's going to give me the oath of office. Would love to have you all there. We're going to be ringing Dr. Cobley's bell as part of the ceremony as well, from the very first days of school. I think the ceremony begins around 9 o'clock. It'll be in the memo. You'll see emails. Would love to have you. The whole school will be there. It's going to be a beautiful event, which isn't really about me. It's about sort of the next phase of the growth and development of the school. Second thing I would keep on your radars, Tuesday, November 22nd. It's the Tuesday right before Thanksgiving. We're bringing Grandparents' Day back. This will be grandparents and special friends. So we know some children don't have a grandparent. 21, excuse me, 21. Don't come on the 22nd. There'll be no grandparents on campus. Tuesday, November 21. We haven't finalized the details of that day, but it will not be a full day. The students don't know that yet. You don't need to tell them that part. Let the teachers be the good guys. But it'll be a series of things, some performances, some activities, some tours for grandparents and special friends. At the conclusion, we'll probably have some punch and cookies on the mall. Grandparents, special friends can take the kids home with you. Should be a nice way to go to Thanksgiving. It's a tradition that's a part of the excellent fabric of the school. We couldn't do it because of COVID. It's been a few years. We're bringing it back. There's a lot going on campus. It's an exciting time to be at Meadows. It's great to be at Mustang. It's great to be here with you all today. If you would, please leave your cards on the table. Leave them by with one of the staff. I'm so glad you all came. Come back next time. Have a great morning. Thank you all.